The CEO had everything: wealth, power, respect. But on one ordinary morning, as he headed toward his luxury car, a small voice shattered his perfect world. The cleaner's black son shouted, "Don't get in the car." What the CEO discovered in that chilling moment didn't just change his life. It shocked the entire company and exposed secrets no one ever expected. The boardroom was alive with chatter. Polished oak gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights, while the panoramic glass windows revealed a skyline of steel and ambition. This was Granite Global Enterprises, a company known for swallowing smaller firms and spitting out profits like clockwork. At the head of the table sat Charles Whitman, the CEO. Silver hair combed immaculately back, suit tailored with sharp precision, and eyes that always seemed to scan for weaknesses, Charles commanded attention without raising his voice. People described him as intimidating yet visionary, a man who had built an empire from nothing. But today, even his usual confidence carried an undercurrent of distraction. Outside that polished room, life looked very different. The company employed hundreds, but among the least visible were the cleaners, working late nights and early mornings, invisible in their navy uniforms. One of them was Ruth Johnson, a middle-aged black woman with tired eyes but an unshakable pride in her work. She'd been with Granite Global for 7 years, quietly scrubbing the same floors where executives made million-dollar decisions. Her 12-year-old son Malik sometimes waited for her in the evenings. He'd sit in the lobby with his backpack, sketching superheroes or practicing math while Ruth finished her shift. She couldn't afford childcare, and Malik was a well-behaved boy who never caused trouble. Still, security guards and junior staff often shot him disdainful looks, as if his very presence disrupted the pristine order of the place. What none of them knew, not even Ruth, was that Malik had an extraordinary gift. The boy had a sharp intuition, a gut sense that seemed almost unnatural. Teachers sometimes whispered he was too observant for his age. He'd notice things others missed: an untied shoelace before someone tripped, a flicker in someone's expression before they exploded in anger. Malik himself didn't think much of it. To him, it was just paying attention. But that night, his gift was about to change everything. The setup. It was nearly 7 p.m. when Ruth finished mopping the executive hallway. Charles had just wrapped up another late meeting and was preparing to leave. Malik sat in the lobby sketching a futuristic car in his notebook when he noticed something unusual. A sleek black sedan had pulled up outside, its tinted windows reflecting the streetlights. Nothing strange about that. Executives often left in cars like those. But Malik's eyes caught on the driver. A man in a dark cap sitting too stiffly, staring straight ahead, hands gripping the wheel with unnatural tension. Something felt wrong. Malik closed his sketchbook slowly, heart thumping. He watched as Charles descended the marble staircase, nodding curtly at the receptionist on his way out. Charles's polished shoes clicked against the tile, the sound echoing in the otherwise quiet lobby. The sedan's back door opened automatically. The driver didn't step out, didn't greet Charles, didn't even look in his direction. He just waited. "Mom," Malik whispered, tugging Ruth's sleeve as she stacked her cleaning supplies. "What is it, baby?" Ruth asked, distracted. "Don't let him get in that car." "Who?" "That man, Mr. Whitman. He can't get in that car." Ruth frowned. Charles Whitman was already walking toward the waiting sedan, briefcase in hand. She opened her mouth to scold Malik for saying something ridiculous, but when she glanced at the driver, a chill crawled up her spine. There was something off. And then Malik shouted, "Don't get in the car!" His voice rang through the marble lobby loud enough to make the receptionist jump. Heads turned. Ruth gasped, mortified. Charles froze halfway to the sedan. His sharp eyes snapped toward the boy who had dared to yell at him, the cleaner son of all people. Anger flashed across his face. "What did you say?" His tone was cold, dangerous. Malik's fists clenched. "Please don't get in. Something's wrong." Charles narrowed his eyes, torn between irritation and curiosity. The driver shifted slightly in the front seat, his jaw tightening. It was a subtle movement, but Malik caught it. His gut screamed louder than ever. Danger! Ruth hurried forward, flustered.
"Mr. Whitman, I'm so sorry. He didn't mean thee." But Charles raised his hand, silencing her. He studied Malik for a long moment, his instincts as a CEO, finely tuned to detect liars, telling him the boy wasn't bluffing. And then it happened. Out of the corner of his eye, Charles noticed the driver adjusting something on the console. A flash of metallic wiring glinted before it disappeared under the dashboard. Charles stiffened. Years of corporate battles had given him a nose for betrayal, but this was something else. The explosion that never happened. "Step away from the vehicle," Charles ordered sharply. His voice carried the same authority that made entire boardrooms obey without question. The receptionist blinked. Ruth froze mid-step. Malik's breath caught. The driver hesitated, then slammed the car door shut. His hand darted under the seat. "Security!" Charles barked. 2 guards rushed forward just as the driver bolted from the car. He sprinted toward the side exit, but not before dropping something metallic on the ground. A small black device, wires protruding from its casing. "Bomb!" one of the guards shouted. Panic erupted. The lobby filled with screams as people scattered. Ruth grabbed Malik and shielded him with her body, trembling. Within minutes, the building was swarming with police and bomb squad units. The device was confirmed, a crude but deadly explosive wired to detonate once Charles had entered the car. If Malik hadn't yelled, Charles Whitman would have been blown to pieces. Shockwaves. The next morning, the news exploded across headlines. Assassination attempt on Granite Global CEO thwarted. Cleaner's 12-year-old son saved billionaire's life. Reporters swarmed outside the company headquarters. Cameras flashed. Questions shouted through the air like bullets. But behind the sensational headlines, Granite Global itself was in chaos. Who had orchestrated the attempt? Was it a rival company? A disgruntled ex-employee? Someone inside the firm with access to Charles's schedule? And above all, why had the warning come from a janitor's son? Charles's dilemma. Charles spent the morning in his penthouse replaying the moment in his head, the boy's voice, the certainty in his eyes, the device lying on the pavement. Charles Whitman was not a man easily rattled, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the boy had seen something others couldn't. By noon, Charles made a decision. He summoned Ruth and Malik to his office. The top floor of Granite Global was worlds away from the janitor supply closets Ruth was used to. Plush carpets muffled every footstep. Walls of glass framed the city below, and at the center sat Charles, hands folded, expression unreadable. Ruth kept her eyes down, mortified. "Sir, I apologize again. Malik didn't mean." But to her astonishment, Charles's expression softened ever so slightly. Not warm, not kind, but intrigued. Charles said slowly, "You saved my life. That makes you important." Malik's eyes widened. Ruth's breath caught. Because neither of them knew just how far those words were about to reach. The following morning felt strangely heavy inside the glass towers of the company. Rumors always traveled faster than official memos, and whispers about the late-night scene in the parking lot had already spread through every corridor. People had seen the CEO's black sedan parked awkwardly near the curb, the boy's urgent cries, and the security guards rushing in confusion. Some versions were exaggerated. In one retelling, the car had already exploded. In another, masked men had been caught running away. But regardless of the embellishments, one fact remained unshakable. The CEO, one of the most guarded men in the city, had listened to a child's warning instead of dismissing it. Mr. Harrington, tall, commanding, yet visibly shaken, arrived at the building earlier than usual. His assistant noticed he hadn't shaved and his tie was crooked, things that were almost imaginable for a man obsessed with precision. He didn't walk into his office right away. Instead, he stood by the large lobby windows looking out at the world below as if trying to piece together a puzzle that had been scattered overnight. And downstairs, working quietly with a mop in hand, was Denise, the cleaner, the boy's mother. She hadn't slept, not really, Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her son's face lit by the glow of the streetlight, his voice breaking the night air. "Don't get in the car?" The truth is, her son, Jamal, had seen something no one else had. But how? That question hung like a storm cloud, unasked but urgent. The CEO's reflection. Mr. Harrington retreated to his office. The mahogany desk was polished, the leather chair inviting, yet he felt restless. On the desk lay a folder marked Confidential Security Review. He opened it, scanning photos of his car from the night before. There it was, a small, unfamiliar device tucked under the driver's side, a tangle of wires leading to something taped near the gas tank. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't paranoia. Someone had meant for him to
Entire company in shock. The following week changed the rhythm of the company in ways no one could have imagined. Every morning, Denise dropped Jamal off at the towering headquarters, not in the employee entrance she normally used with her cleaning badge, but through the front doors, past the marble lobby where executives watched in disbelief. Jamal, wearing his little backpack and sneakers, walked beside Mr. Harrington as though he belonged there. And perhaps, in some unexplainable way, he did. It wasn't a publicity stunt. There were no cameras, no stage smiles. The CEO wasn't parading the boy around to soften his image. He genuinely wanted Jamal near him. At first, Jamal would sit quietly in the corner of Harrington's office, sketching cars or fiddling with paper clips. But soon, he began asking questions. Why do all your papers have numbers? Why is everyone always whispering when you walk by? Why does the coffee smell stronger up here than downstairs? Harrington laughed more in those days than he had in years. There was something disarming about a child who didn't care about wealth, titles, or power. Jamal only cared about truth. And Denise, though still cautious, began to notice the change too. Harrington wasn't just tolerating her son's presence, he was learning from him. The boardroom storm. But not everyone was amused. The board of directors called an emergency meeting, their voices sharp with disapproval. "This is highly irregular," barked Mr. Clarkson, one of the oldest and most conservative members. "A child in the executive office? What kind of message does this send to our investors?" "It sends the message," Harrington said coldly, "that I trust the boy who saved my life more than I trust any of you." Gasps rippled around the table. No one dared to speak against him after that, but resentment brewed beneath the surface. Harrington knew it. He could see it in their eyes. Somewhere, among these very men and women, was the traitor who had orchestrated the attempt on his life. Jamal's observation. One evening, as Harrington packed up his briefcase, Jamal tilted his head curiously. "Why does Mr. Clarkson smell like your car?" he asked innocently. Harrington froze. "What do you mean?" "Like that sharp smell. The same one from the night with the clicking. I smelt it on his coat today." Harrington's pulse quickened. Solvents, explosives, the faint trace only a hyper-observant child would notice. "Are you certain?" Harrington pressed. Jamal nodded firmly. "I don't forget smells." The pieces fell into place. Harrington and suspected betrayal, but now the puzzle had a name. Clarkson. The confrontation. The next morning, Harrington arrived early. He dismissed his usual security team and walked straight into Clarkson's office. "You've been with this company for 20 years, Harrington said quietly, shutting the door behind him. "And yet you tried to end me." Clarkson didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled thinly. "You've grown too powerful, too untouchable. Someone had to remind you that kings can fall." "You would have destroyed everything we built," Harrington spat. "No," Clarkson countered. "I would have saved it. From you." The confession was enough. By the end of the day, Clarkson was escorted out in handcuffs, the evidence clear. But what shook Harrington most wasn't the betrayal. It was that the first spark of truth hadn't come from security reports or expensive investigators. It had come from a boy's nose. The offer.
That evening, Harrington called Denise and Jamal into his office once again. "I owe you both more than I can ever repay. And I don't just mean my life. You've given me something I thought I lost years ago." "What's that?" Denise asked cautiously. "Trust," Harrington replied simply. He turned to Jamal. "You see things others don't. You saved me once, then again. I want to invest in your future, not as charity, but as recognition. Jamal, I want to send you to the best schools, the ones that will teach you to sharpen that gift of yours." Denise's eyes welled with tears. She had scrubbed floors for years just to keep food on the table. The idea that her son might step into a world of opportunity she could never afford was overwhelming. But Jamal only looked at Harrington curiously. "Will I still get to see Mom every day?" "Yes," Harrington said, smiling. "Always." The transformation. Over the months that followed, whispers in the company changed. At first, employees scoffed at the idea of a CEO spending so much time with a cleaner's child, but slowly, respect began to replace ridicule. People noticed Harrington laughing in the hallways, working longer hours but with renewed purpose. They saw Denise treated not as invisible staff, but as a woman whose son had become a quiet symbol of vigilance and truth. And Jamal, still a boy, still carrying his backpack, became a presence no one ignored. One day, when an elevator groaned oddly, Jamal tugged at the sleeve of a passing engineer. "That cable is about to snap," he said confidently. The man dismissed him at first, until minutes later, the elevator failed its safety check. Word spread again. The boy was never wrong. The revelation. It all came to a head at the annual company gala. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, and every powerful investor in the city was present. Harrington stepped up to the stage, microphone in hand, but instead of delivering his usual speech about profits and projections, he motioned for Jamal and Denise to join him. The room fell silent. "This company was nearly destroyed," he began, his voice steady, "not by market crashes or competitors, but by betrayal within our own walls. I stand here today because someone saw what no one else did. Someone without a title, without a degree, without a corner office. A boy who trusted his instincts and saved my life." He placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "This day forward, this company will not measure worth by rank or wealth. We will measure it by truth, loyalty, and courage. This boy reminded me of that, and I will never forget it." The applause was thunderous, though not unanimous. Some clapped out of genuine awe, others reluctantly, but no one could deny what they had just witnessed. And in that moment, Denise felt a shift she could barely put into words. Her son, her little boy who once went unnoticed in the shadows of janitorial halls, was now standing under the brightest lights of all. Epilogue of Part 3. The night ended with Jamal tugging at Harrington's sleeve. "Mr. Harrington," he whispered. "Yes, Jamal? Does this mean I'm part of your family now?" Harrington paused, emotion catching in his throat. Then he knelt down, meeting the boy's eyes. "You've always been part of it," he said quietly. And with those words, something deeper than a business alliance or gratitude was born. It was the beginning of a family neither of them expected, and the foundation of a future that would shock not just the company, but the entire city.